Hi there, my name is Marilyn Miller. I am the owner of Pilates on Hudson, and I am a certified personal trainer, a Pilates instructor, neurokinetic therapist, retired ballet dancer, and general movement professional. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about breathing. Obviously right now breathing is a big concern for everybody. So what I see when I look at videos on breathing is they all talk about how they want you to do a nice diaphragmatic breath or side breathing or belly breathing and all of these things, but I haven't seen anyone that actually teaches you how to breathe, what the physics are. How do you do a lateral breath? How do you do a diaphragmatic breath? What is the diaphragm? Where is it? Why is it helpful in any way? Why should I be doing this? So I'm just going to go over a few of those things for you to help you understand a little bit better. So first, what is your diaphragm? Okay, so your diaphragm is a muscle that separates your chest, your rib cage, your lungs, your heart, from your abdominal cavity, which is where your small intestine and your large intestine are down here. So when we're doing core work, our abs are all down here. So it is a muscle, and people always say, well, it's kind of somewhere around here. It is, but it's a muscle that literally transects your entire body, meaning that it's all the way underneath your diaphragm, or underneath your rib cage. It starts at the front of the rib cage, it continues all the way around. So it's creating an absolute separation between what's called your thoracic cavity or your chest and your abdominal cavity here at your waist, right? It's a muscle that goes up and over completely underneath your rib cage, okay? So now we have an understanding of where the diaphragm is. So what does the diaphragm act like? The diaphragm, imagine a jellyfish. So a jellyfish goes up and down and up and down. It's doming and flattening and doming and flattening, right? We've all seen a picture or seen in person a jellyfish and how it kind of has this movement to it, okay? So your diaphragm basically does the same thing. At one point when we're breathing, the diaphragm goes up, and at another point when we're breathing, the diaphragm goes back down. Now, I want everybody who's watching this to take a quick breath in. Now, very quickly, which way do you think the diaphragm went when you breathed in? And I'm going to guess that a majority of you probably just said, well, the diaphragm obviously is going up. That would be incorrect. The diaphragm is going down when you inhale. But it feels like it's going up. It does, because your airflow is going up into your nasal passages, right? But once they get past the nasal passages here, where are our lungs? There. So which way does our air have to go once it goes past the nasal passages? There. Has to go down. If our lungs were kind of hanging out in space somewhere up here, then we would be breathing up. Maybe the diaphragm would be going up. But the diaphragm is pulling down because our breath is actually being drawn down into the body. And how does that work? This is where it gets kind of complicated, but pretty simple. I'm going to have you just open your mouth and don't breathe. Just open your mouth and don't take a breath in. Okay, you can breathe now. Is there any airflow happening when you're just sitting there with your mouth open? Meaning, is any air being drawn into your lungs at all when you do this? And the answer is no. So what can I do to actually get this air into my lungs? How does that actually work? Something has to happen. And there's a simple principle here at work when we think about it. We're trying to draw the air from outside into our lungs. Another word we might use would be to suck the air in, suck, suction, If we're thinking of suction, then perhaps there's a utensil that we can think of that we kind of clean our houses with every now and then, maybe more so nowadays, right? That has a lot of suction. It's called a vacuum. So what we are in essence doing when we breathe is we've created a vacuum. And when we inhale, our diaphragm draws down in order to suck the air into our lungs. And then when we exhale, the diaphragm goes up, the ribs squeeze together, and that's how we expel the air. So I have a prop here. So this is a simple syringe. I have a sheet of paper so you can kind of see the syringe a little bit better, right? It's a large syringe. I think it was a wisdom tooth syringe, right? I don't think there was a needle on the end of this. But we've all seen a syringe like this, correct? So the question is, we understand here, if I have a vial of medicine and I need to draw that medicine into the syringe, I draw the syringe downward to pull the medicine into the vial. And if I want to expel the medicine from the vial, I press upwards. Correct? Again, to draw into the vial, I draw downward. And to press the medicine out of the vial, I press upward. So our breathing is very much the same as this. If you look at many ventilators, the old-fashioned respirators, I should probably say, as opposed to a ventilator, but the old-fashioned respirators, you will see this cylindrical mechanical device moving up and down, just like that. The diaphragm is also seen on what we call a bellows. When I open this out, you can see how the base of the bellows, the bladder of the bellows, draws flat and down. So that is essentially what's happening when we're breathing. The bottom of the diaphragm drawing down into the abdominal in towards the abdominal cavity, not into it, but towards it, and flattening out. And then as you can see, it goes up as it closes together, right? So now we have a good understanding as to what's going on when we breathe. Let's practice that, shall we? So one way to do that is purse your lips together and then breathe in through pursed lips. And then exhale. And try that again. And then exhale. So, some of you may have a hard time doing that. Some of you may find that your chest is doing a lot of work. You feel a lot of lifting in your shoulders. So that's understandable. When we breathe, ideally, not only is our diaphragm drawing down like this, but the muscles of our rib cage, called our intercostals, are contracting as if we had on a big hoop skirt and we're trying to pick the hoop skirt up, and they're lifting and tightening that rib cage to allow movement of the lungs, the expansion of the lungs. And then as we exhale, that hoop skirt goes down and that diaphragm goes up, and that's how we expel the air. But a lot of people have a locked diaphragm, meaning their diaphragm is not moving, or their intercostal muscles are not moving correctly anymore. And when that's the case, instead of the diaphragm pulling down away from the rib cage, the diaphragm is stuck, and so the rib cage is pulling up away from the diaphragm every single time. So it may be that that's the issue with you, that when you breathe, you're trying to lift your rib cage away. So C If you can find a straw, and thinking about what I've just described, about how the diaphragm draws down into the abdominal cavity when you breathe, and the rib muscles lift up to allow for expansion of the lungs. Take this straw, focusing on keeping your chest and your shoulders down, and breathe. Now this may take a little bit of practice, especially if you feel like your diaphragm doesn't want to work and your chest wants to do all of the work. You may find a lot of tension in your mouth, and I can tell you, if you have TMJ, one of the main reasons for TMJ is a dysfunctional diaphragm and a dysfunctional core. So in Pilates, breathing is the absolute first thing that we want you to understand how to do. In yoga, breathing is the first thing that we want you to understand how to do. In any kind of cardiovascular exercise, breathing is what we need you to do. And right now, with what we're going through in the world, breathing is the most important thing that we need to do. So, think about what I have said on this video. If you have any questions about it, please leave them in the comments. I would strongly suggest working on this at least 2 to 3 times a day if you have breathing problems, to help retrain your breath pattern and to see if you can get to the point that you can breathe for at least 10 seconds for an inhale and 10 seconds for an exhale. I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, leave me any questions in the comments. Again, my name is Marilyn Miller, the owner of Pilates on Hudson. And thank you for joining me today. And we're out.